Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion. It's not a straightforward review. It's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show is always free, but if you want to support us on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie, all one word. And if you sign up, you do get a weekly bonus episode of my kind of weekly roundup of everything else that I'm watching. Like this week I saw House of Gucci, Candyman, a few other things. But anyway, I do want to take a moment to thank my top patrons, and they are Chris Balga, Jeff Widman, Philip Barker, and Michael Cross. Thank you guys so much for keeping the lights on. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe and rate the show. It does help new listeners find us. I have a returning guest on the podcast. I have Chase. Say hi, Chase.
Hi, Chase. Hey, everyone.
And yes, it's good to have you back. It's good to hear from you.
It is such a pleasure, such a joy to be back here talking a little flick with you, Lisa.
Yes. And Chase, why don't you tell our listeners about your podcast and about yourself?
Sure. So for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Chase McKinney, and I run a little Star Trek podcast called These Are the Voyages. And we talk about pretty much anything and everything Star Trek. And currently we are inundated with a bunch of new Star Trek that just is coming out left, right, and center, and it is a wonderful time to be a Star Trek fan. That is for sure.
It really is.
So constantly doing like reviews of shows like Star Trek Prodigy on their first season, Star Trek Discovery now in their fourth season, and I'm constantly doing book reviews at least once a month. So if you want to get connected, check us out. You can find us on all the different podcasting places. And you can also connect with us on all the socials at TRTV Pod. And we have a website, trtvpod.com. So I'm happy to have anyone and everyone that is interested in Trek or has been leery of it. We're not gatekeepers. We just want you to come in and have fun. And that's the point. Just have fun talking Trek.
I love that you emphasize that, because that is, that's tough with any fandom. It's like, it can be a little bit intimidating. And I do think, unfortunately, Star Trek has gotten the reputation of having somewhat of a gatekeepy fandom. Trekkies are passionate about the show that they connect with. And I'm no different, but I love what you said about like making it open to everybody, because I completely agree with that. And I've been on that show too. So
yes, you have.
Go check it out. And you've been on here. Normally you talk Star Trek, but my guest always picks a movie. You picked a different movie today. What movie did you pick to talk about?
I know I threw you for a loop on this one, and
you did.
I chose one of my absolute favorite musicals, the 1962 film, The Music Man.
So you're not the only person to have picked this film, and I had to think about it before I made my decision. Scott also wanted to talk about this film.
Okay.
He's a good friend, and he had picked it a long time ago. However, he does pick a ton of movies. So I made the executive decision that we had talked about Music Man a long time ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to let that one out of the vault, and I'm going to let you have it.
Okay.
And I do that occasionally. Hopefully I don't hurt any feelings. But if somebody has been on the show a bunch of times and they have a long list, then I'll do my best at first, but sometimes I have to let some of them go. So I gave you Music Man.
Oh, well, thank you.
A little bit of background. And Scott was very gracious about it.
Scott, I've never met you, but I love you, appreciate you. I'll try and do you proud with this discussion. How about that?
There you go. So this film came out in 1962. I imagine that's not when you first saw it, because I think that's a little before your time. But when did you first see this movie?
So I can recall seeing this, vividly seeing it at least 2000, I think it was 3.
Okay.
first time I saw it.
Cool.
And yeah, it was. So I was definitely in high school when this was coming out, but um, there's a story to that as well. So we can get into that, I guess, as you so choose.
Oh yeah, whenever you want. You can tell it now or you can wait. Either way.
So in
Floor is
high
yours.
school, so I guess I'll just start with high school. So in high school, we would always do spring musicals with the
Oh, cool.
drama department and everything. And um, I had originally um, wanted to be in this particular musical. We would whatever musical we were doing for the spring, we would typically watch it if there was some kind of movie, some kind of something or other of it prior to the spring, so we knew kind of what we were getting ourselves into, kind of what the character portrayals were like, if it was even appropriate for high school, and
Hmm.
it being vetted and stuff like that. And I originally wanted to be in this. Like I didn't care like what role I was, and as it happened, the days that auditions were, I was unable to be at the audition, so I didn't actually get a chance to even try out for this.
Oh
But
no.
I know one of my bucket list things though before I die is I do want to portray, or I'd like to portray Harold Hill at least one time before I die on stage. So we'll see. It's a tall order, but we'll see.
Yeah. But, it could happen. I mean, we don't know. It could, local theater or, whatever you choose. There's got to be, I feel like there's a lot of openings out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, but like the thing that I liked about this, like apart from the story and the music and stuff, with kind of the exposure I really had with it, was that this is something that really got me to appreciate like the technical side of theater. So
Mm.
prior to this, being in like the drama class and the drama club and being inducted into the thespian society, even in high school, um, I would typically just be like an usher or something. Not that there's anything wrong with being an usher, but just that's typically what I would do whenever these productions would happen. And it was through this particular play that I got to cut my teeth with like set design. I got to cut my teeth with even some lighting and some sound engineering in high school. So it opened up a lot of really cool opportunities that I got to use even beyond high school, going into um, certain parts of like college and other extracurricular things that I did even into my young adult years. I'm still a young
Mm.
adult, I suppose, but um, anyways, like just the creative stuff, like really like was in a way birthed out of this particular play, out of this particular musical. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Well, bomb drop here. It's the first time I've ever seen it.
how about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it's been requested by at least one person. I think that there's been a couple other people that may have like not officially requested it, but at least mentioned it. But I had not seen it. And there's this thing that happens, especially with these older musicals, where I'm like, have I seen it? You know what I mean? Like you're like,
Absolutely,
did
yeah,
I
yeah.
see this as a kid? But I watched the whole thing today actually, and I had not seen it. So this is my first time. So I don't have a lot of background about it, but I'm excited to chat about it. And before we continue, I do want to let listeners know that this will not be spoiler free. I guess
Uh-uh.
spoilers aren't as big of a deal in a musical, but anyway, I suggest that you watch it first before you listen to this. And with that, I'm going to read the synopsis real quick.
Great.
When Harold Hill, a traveling con man, arrives in River City, he convinces the locals to start a band by purchasing the uniforms and instruments from him. His intention is to flee as soon as he receives the money. Librarian Marion Peru suspects Harold is a fraud, but holds her tongue because her moody brother Winthrop is excited about the band. As Harold begins to develop feelings for Marion, he faces a difficult decision about skipping town.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's the plot in a nutshell, but we will kind of dive into all the ins
Yeah,
and outs.
yeah, yeah.
This one was directed by Morton DaCosta. Do you know anything about this director? Are you a fan, or is this like the main film that you've seen of his?
I think it's the main film that I've seen of him. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was also involved in the original Broadway play, which was something
Oh,
that was
okay.
which was something that was pretty
Yeah.
unheard of for that particular time.
Oh, interesting. I mean, you think it would make sense. I know that obviously stage is different from film, but when it comes to something like a musical, you'd think that, they go hand in hand. But yeah, I'm reading that on here that he had a lot of Broadway success.
Yeah,
He doesn't have a ton of films that he directed under his belt, it seems like. So, yeah, it seems like he was mainly theater.
yeah, and that was something I was finding out too as I was going through this, that preparing for this particular show, that like today you have like Broadway and other like theater companies that like can go hand in hand with Hollywood, and like there might be like that bag of money that they have just to throw around, but like 1950s, 60s, 70s, it was very much unheard of.
Mm,
And for the fact that he was willing to come on board and to help finance this production, I think is fantastic. I mean, like you still have like that um, creative vision that you had on stage coming forth to the silver screen for
yeah,
people that wouldn't have been able to see it on Broadway, perhaps.
that's a good point. Um, I also have a couple of quick facts I was going to throw out there. I actually put four down. So here's the first one.
Sure.
Despite Robert Preston's Tony Award winning performance in the Broadway production, Warner Brothers executives wanted a bankable star in the lead role of Professor Harold Hill for the movie. Frank Sinatra was actually offered the part, but he turned it down. Cary Grant was also approached, but told the Warner Brothers executives, "No, I will not star in it if Preston doesn't star in it,"
Hmm.
which is apparently something that he's done a couple of times. So that's noble of him. I appreciate that. He's like, don't do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not gonna. I'd come across that myself too, and I'm kind of wondering what it would have been like to have old Blue Eyes as Professor Harold Hill in The
I
Music Man.
know. I feel like he's almost like too edgy, right? Or maybe that's just his real life persona that kind of makes me
Sure.
think that.
Sure.
Um, this film has 17 of some 40 songs in all that Meredith Wilson wrote for the
Hmm.
musical,
Hmm.
and not all of them are even on the stage either. So just really wrote a lot of songs for this one.
Yeah. He wrote his part of his biography in coming up with this. It's kind of interesting because of just like the fact that he was very musically inclined himself,
Hmm.
and he had like a lot of startups and kind of like setbacks in terms of like even crafting the story, and
Mm.
then like even trying to like find like the right sound, the right tune to like some of the songs. That was a struggle itself. So yeah, like just how it came all together, and just like the songs that we do have, I think speak for themselves for anyone that's seen it, especially anyone that just loves the soundtrack for this as well.
Yeah, and I did. That was part of my other fact about Meredith Wilson is that a lot of this is based on their own experiences, as you said, and growing up in Iowa, and that's I just think that's cool when people write about their experiences. The
Absolutely.
last thing that I'm going to say is related to Meredith Wilson again. "Till There Was You" was recorded by the Beatles after Paul McCartney was introduced to Peggy Lee's cover of the song. McCartney actually had no idea that it was from the Music Man, and the song was part of their repertoire in 1962. They performed it at the Star Club in Hamburg. It showed they could appeal to all audiences, moving easily from somber ballads to harder rock and roll.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I
I
was
didn't
like,
know that.
wow, but it's like when you're covering something in 1962, it's possible to cross over with the Beatles. So I thought that was interesting.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Well, do you want to talk about the cast, or do you want to dive into your thoughts on some of the scenes?
So I wanted to like, there's like one or two things
Okay.
like else beside that I want to maybe bring up,
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
and then yeah, we can start wherever. I don't really care. I can talk about any part of this. Doesn't matter to me.
Sounds good.
Um, so one thing that you don't know, and I'm sure that your listeners don't know about me, is that I actually do play trombone. And
Oh, cool. What a good connection. No wonder you
yes,
like this movie.
so yeah, and so whenever I first saw this, right, and there's this song called 76 Trombones, which I think is like the most popular song from the Music Man, if I'm being completely honest.
Hmm.
It was like my anthem. Like I remember
You like really related to it.
I really related to it. Not just because of that, but because like you're hearing like, John Philip Sousa, W.C. Handy, the great creator, you're hearing like these lyrics coming from
Hmm.
this song. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. And then like you get a little bit of a hint of Stars and Stripes Forever, which is definitely a John Philip Sousa song. And I mean, this was like my anthem. Like I was saying, like with like the spring musicals and things like that, the instructor would give the class a essentially back then like we didn't have um, like Spotify's and YouTube's to just go pull up a song. So she would actually burn CDs or get tapes or something for us to like borrow and listen to prepare as well. So I actually got a copy of the CD, and I remember I put it in my CD player, and I just like played this song on repeat over and over and over again. I'm like, yes, finally, trombones, we get a little something, something, and I was just so excited about that. So that was one thing, and the other thing is um, one thing that I tend to camp out on a lot in on my own show is the music. Like, what does the music
Mm,
do to move the story forward? Is this an appropriate song? Does it capture the whatever it is that's taking place, type of thing?
yeah.
And I'm sure I'm going to talk about that just by virtue of this show being called The Music Man. But there's there are these two types of soundtrack, these two types of songs that we hear that we might not realize that we hear, not
Okay.
just in this one, but in a lot of movies. And that's the
Hmm.
difference between source music and diegetic music. I don't know if you're
Okay.
familiar with that at all.
Oh no, a lot of things that you said just now about trombones and famous songwriters and things like that. I have never, I don't play any instruments.
Okay,
So you're
fair enough.
teaching me right now.
Fair enough. So source music is like the stuff that you're hearing, right? Like there's like no
Okay.
maybe no instruments playing, but it's like just the music that you hear. It's part of the show, type of thing.
Mhm.
Diegetic music, the best example I can give of diegetic music is from a different movie, the movie Home Alone. So if you think to Home Alone, whenever Kevin McAllister is he has like the cardboard cutouts doing like the little silhouette party thing, trying to keep the wet bandits away,
Yeah.
uh, and he's playing the I think it's Rock Around the Christmas Tree or something like that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so diegetic music is where not only can we, the audience, hear the music, but the characters can hear the music as well. So,
Oh, okay, I understand now. So it's like, is it a part of the film in that
mhm,
they're not aware they're in a musical kind of thing, or
right,
are they enjoying the music with us? Okay.
right. That's probably I could have said that. Yeah. So good job.
No, I liked your example with Home Alone, and it made me think about how a couple of years ago we saw like a John Williams concert where it was like all the Christmas music,
Sure.
and there was a lot of Home Alone, a lot of Harry Potter and stuff. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So there's you have these examples of source music and diegetic music taking place in the Music Man. It's not as,
Mm,
there's not as much diegetic as you would think there would be for this particular
right.
production. Um, like what would be a good example? So the very end, right? The very end, whenever we have the band, there's
Hmm.
actually a band, and that is diegetic music taking place at its finest right there, because they are playing it, that we are hearing it, they are hearing it, but the rest of it is essentially just source music, and I just
Hmm.
think it's kind of funny, like I mean, with what I do, whenever I'm adulting, being a counselor, I'm like, wow, this is like all in their head, like
Yeah, that's true.
like it's like there's a part where they're in like the gym, and they're like doing the motions for like trombones and piccolos and stuff like that,
Oh
um
yeah.
and like they don't hear it, but they're like pretending that they hear it, but we can hear it, and it's just funny whenever to me it's funny when you think of it that way.
Yeah, well, also, like you said, what the musical is actually about, you think that they would be enjoying more music during the musical.
Right.
It's called The Music Man.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
no, I can definitely see that.
Right. I mean, shapoopy, which is a word that was made up, by the way. like
Oh,
that
not
particular
not in the
song.
dictionary.
Yeah, like so the song Shapoopy, that was I mean that's a good diegetic song right there because they can hear it.
Yeah.
There is music that's taking place. They're dancing to it. It's the women's dance committee or something like that meets on
Mhm.
Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
So
They're very cute. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Like I thought
No,
that
that's a
was
good point.
about the different types of music that we're experiencing that people might not know what the word actually is for.
Well, now I'm gonna think about that the next time I watch a musical.
There you go.
I watched 2 musicals this week because I watched this and I watched Tick, Tick, Boom earlier, so it's been kind of a musical week for
How
me.
about that? Love that.
Um, what do you wanna talk about next?
I don't know. One thing, okay, I guess I'll say this. The way that this starts, where with the train,
Mhm.
uh, I love the heck out of this. Uh, I just love the heck out of this for a couple of reasons. One, you have Harold Hill, who's just chilling there. He's just sitting there, kind of paying attention to what's going on, not saying a darn thing, and everyone else is just venting about this guy in song form, and I just love that. I just love. I don't know
Yeah.
why I love it so much, but I
It's
just think
so
it's hilarious.
fast too. Like like whenever that song starts, I was like almost found it like surprising, like jarring or something where it was like I don't know, like they're just talking so quickly and they're kind of singing, kind of not singing. I just thought
Right,
it was an
right,
interesting song. But it like accurately reflects what they're doing.
right, and accurately reflecting the pace, right,
Mhm. Yeah.
of the train that they're on, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Lisa, or seen the interview, but it was Hugh Jackman was being interviewed by oh shoot was it Conan? I think it was Conan. It might have been Conan. It was one of the late night interviews. That's all I remember, and it was around the time that Hugh Jackman was being like doing like his little press circuit or whatever for Greatest Showman, I believe, and
Mm, okay.
people were kind of surprised, like, oh shoot, this guy can sing, type of thing.
Yeah.
And what most people, I mean, people associate Hugh Jackman as just like the Wolverine, and that's it.
Right, right.
But like he was doing musicals long before he, put on the claws and,
Mhm.
was a mutant and stuff. But with what he was when he first was getting into theater, he he actually auditioned for his very first musical using that particular song from the Music Man.
That doesn't surprise me. Like I could see him doing that just
Hmm.
based on like what I've seen of him in like The Greatest Showman or Les Mis. Like I could totally see that. That feels so him.
Sure, yeah. And the thing that's like really cool, and if I could convince my wife to do this, I would be a very happy man. But um, there's going to be a revival of the Music Man here in about a year, and
Oh, cool.
Hugh Jackman is going to be Professor Harold Hill on Broadway.
Oh, that's like a perfect role for him.
Absolutely. So
Although I will say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just like super excited about that. Like if I could get
That's
to New
very
York and
cool.
actually see it, like that'd be fantastic. Just to see like Rock Island be sung, hear him sing, Trouble and all the other songs. That'd be fantastic.
Maybe you can make it like a dual trip, like find something she wants to do in New York and then it'll be kind of like a 50-50.
There we go. There we go.
Um, Harold Hill, for me, reminds me a lot of Dick Van Dyke. Like, he feels like a Dick Van Dyke, like, template or something.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
But maybe that's because I just saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
I
I don't
mean, it
know.
is from like a similar era.
It is. And I guess they're similar types of leading men. Maybe that's what it is, but it kind of reminds
Yeah,
me of him.
yeah, both very charismatic, um, very jovial, and just high energy.
Yeah, and like handsome, but like a little bit older than their co-star. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like
Hmm.
they have an edge to them where it's kind of it's like they're handsome, but they also like the fact that he's a con man, also you're like, oh, I can kind of see it.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there's just something there with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's probably, I don't recognize a ton of the cast if I'm honest, besides Ron Howard.
Yeah, yeah. So Yeah, little Ronnie Howard.
Yeah.
Before he graduated and became Ron Howard. Little Richie Cunningham and the director that we
Hmm.
know today. Um,
So crazy, right?
yeah, and you got to think too that with Ron Howard at this point, like he had been on the Andy Griffith Show for 2 years at this
Oh
point.
yeah, I always forget that he was on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen it in a long time. Man, I feel like the Andy Griffith Show comes up on this podcast a lot. I guess just because we talk about movies. But um yeah, he's such an adorable kid. Man, his hair is so red when he's little. I mean, I guess it's pretty red now, the hair that he has, but
That's true. Yeah.
when he was a kid, it's just bright red.
Yeah, and so I grew up like vicariously watching um, the Andy Griffith Show just because of my dad always had it
I
on.
watched it a lot too. I have an aunt that we call Aunt B.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
She's very good natured about it. Since she doesn't, she was very young, so she was probably like, I don't want to be Aunt B, but yeah, she
Look,
took it
man,
well.
Aunt B took care of things, man.
She did, she did. She ran things.
But like, yeah, like when you're watching the Andy Griffith Show, at least, especially like the early seasons, it's all black and white, and
Right.
then like,
That's what I'm thinking of, and I think that's why I was like, I forgot he was on that.
hmm and then boom, Technicolor, baby, bright red hair. Here we go.
It is wild that like I was born, in the 80s, but a lot of the TV that I watched was, Andy Griffith's Show, Leave It to Beaver, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But, Nick at Night kind of had a lot to do with that.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, like Happy Days and Wonder Years, man.
Mhm.
That's how I watched. That's what I watched a lot of on Nick at Night and whatever it became later on. But
Yeah.
um, so between Robert Preston and Ronnie Howard, we also had Buddy Hackett, who
Right. Buddy Hackett, I know the name, but anyway, continue.
so he was. I mean, he was a pretty prolific like comedic character actor in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and he wasn't one of the first choices to come
Mm.
on as Marcellus. And in fact, with Marcellus, or I'm sorry, with Buddy Hackett, he couldn't dance at all, and he had to work extensively with the choreographer to be able to turn him into the dancer that he was for this particular film, especially with the number Shapoopy, which of course is the Marcellus song.
Oh, that is so interesting. I never would have known that watching
Hmm.
it. I mean, he did a good job. And then people listening might know him, younger audiences, as Scuttle from The Little Mermaid,
That's right. I
which is
looked.
what happens when actors get older. It's like you remember the cartoon they were in instead, but
Hmm. Yeah, I looked. I was looking at that, and just like to see like what other stuff Buddy Hackett was in, and I was like, man, he was like 60 something whenever he portrayed Scuttle in Little Mermaid. That's just wild to me.
and then like he was in like the original Love Bug,
Yeah,
yeah, which I remember watching that a lot too.
and Shirley Jones, who plays Marion, the Madam Librarian. She I didn't watch it, but I know that she was on Partridge Family. Um,
Yeah, I never watched Partridge Family growing up, but I was more of a Brady Bunch kind of fan.
Same.
But that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And here's another interesting thing about her. There, what they did a revival of sorts, early 2000s, and she was in the production, but instead of playing Marion, obviously, she ended up playing Mrs. Peru. So she got to
Oh,
play
okay.
her own mother, essentially.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Full circle.
yeah. And I was like, as I was, rewatching it, preparing for this show, and having this lovely discussion with you, I was like just watching like some of the numbers that Mrs. Prue was doing, and especially the part where Harold Hill and Mrs. Prue are in the yard, kind of singing and dancing together. I'm like, that had to have been so much fun for Shirley to do um,
Yeah,
for that revival.
that is really cool.
So anyway, um, but yeah, such a lovely a lovely musical that originally came out in 1957. So the original came out in 1957, which Robert Preston was part of. He was he was the originator of the role of Professor Harold Hill.
Oh, very cool. I'm glad that they stuck with him, you know?
Yes, me too. And like we were saying at the beginning, like it would be kind of weird to have anyone but him. Like
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra. Yeah, he was the thing back then. But I just can't. It's hard for me to imagine anyone but Robert Preston as Harold Hill.
It's hard for me to imagine Frank Sinatra invading like a small Midwestern town. Maybe that's part of why I'm like having trouble with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I don't know. Where do you want to? Where should we go next?
Do you want to talk about some of your favorite scenes
Sure, sure.
or
Uh,
numbers, whichever?
well, obviously, 76 trombones. I mean, since I'm a
Yes.
trombone player. Trouble. That is,
Oh.
You Got Trouble is uh, probably a song that I incorporate as much as I can in normal life. Um, Whenever someone says, like, you're in trouble or you got trouble, then that's like automatically what I go to. I somehow end up sounding like a dork and just say, yeah, with a capital T that rhymes with P and stands for pool. And I get like question mark looks whenever I say that. I'm like, all right, I overstepped. It's fine. It's fine. But that song, I don't know if you knew this, but part of the audition process that not that's that has been pretty typical from what I understand, and I know that we did this just by the conversations that were had in high school, but the way that the role of Harold Hill was selected was, can you do Trouble?
Oh, okay.
Because
Kind of a
Trouble
litmus test.
Yeah, because Trouble is like the most difficult song lyrically of the
Mm,
entire show. And they wanted to make sure that the person portraying him could actually pull it off. And I remember reading somewhere that Robert Preston actually had trouble himself just because of like, he was apprehensive just because of his own range and
mm.
like if he would be a good fit for the role. And he went and did it. And then he like knocked it out of the park, and then the rest is history essentially. And like I said, like in high school, I didn't get to go to the auditions like I was saying, but they did a very similar thing, and um, it was kind of cool, like knowing that like after the fact that they did like essentially the same thing that they had the original Broadway star do.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, well, this is the hardest part of the act, so let's see what you can do with that and then go from there.
Yeah, yeah, and um, I love the fact, like I love this song in the sense because like this is the thing that um, really shows like his scheme,
Mm.
because like he's talking, like he rolls into town, trying to figure out where the center of town is, and everyone's giving him a hard time, just being curmudgeons and stuff, which I love. And he runs into his buddy, and he's trying to find an inn, like with these people, and he's like saying like, yeah, I gotta, win them over. I gotta get their confidence. Like, what's a thing? Like, what's something new that I can kind of take advantage of? And even before you hear the song, You Got Trouble, you see this wagon carrying in this new billiard table um, as part of that original scene,
Mm.
um, and just like the fact that that's happening and that's taking place, and just how it all comes together, I loved. And just like watching some of the extras like singing and dancing in the song is just funny if you pay attention to like some of the um, just like some of them like on the fringes. I don't know if you noticed that or were paying any attention to that at all.
I'd probably have to see it a second time just because it was the first time that I see it, but I love that detail about musicals in general that they're just such a big cast. Because I mean, originally it's supposed to be on stage, so you can look at like several different people at once.
Right, right. You have So you have in the town square where they're singing this, like right by this giant statue. Um, you have like a bunch of like random people, and if you look, like in the background and like a few in the foreground, you can see just some of the people that are kind of like looking off to the side, like looking for the cue to like which way do I wave my hand, or do I stand up, do I duck down, what do I do? And I love that. There's just something just so innocent about that, and that's one thing I love about musicals is there's a good story. There's almost
Mhm.
always a good story in a musical, and there's an innocence about musicals that I don't think you get with a lot of productions anymore, or even with
Yeah, and I
stage.
think for sure, I think it has to do a lot with the times, it's like, what were people looking to do during this time? Were they trying to escape what was going on in the real world? And
Mhm,
I think a lot of times musicals get really popular in eras where things were tough,
for
and so
sure.
they look to something really optimistic and pleasant to watch because of that. And so you get some of these great movies that have just very like you said, very innocent, uplifting, Americana type messages.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, this is just just a lovely song, and it's one that um, I will put on repeat to listen to, just because it's just so much fun. Like just the pacing, just everything is just so fun about this song, and just how he uses and crafts his words to create a narrative to get people to go against a stupid little billiard table for crying out loud. It's awesome. So, um, other than that, like this other song that I think is that rings very true for each and every one of us. I think you could switch out one thing for the other, and it would still hit the same. And that's the Wells Fargo wagon.
Oh yeah, I thought that part was really interesting because obviously Wells Fargo, and I was like, man, I guess I forget how long Wells Fargo's been around. What year does this movie take place in? Do you know?
So this movie takes place in 1912, the summer of 1912.
1912. Okay. And when this came out, that had only been 50 years ago.
That's right.
Well, less than 50, but yeah. Which
That's
is
right.
weird to think about.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, as I've seen this too many times to count. I have not seen this anywhere near as much as I've seen Star Trek First Contact, by the way. So I just want to put that. So for anyone that hasn't listened to that episode or listened to my podcast at all, I've seen Star Trek First Contact well over 200 times. This one I've seen probably like 30 or 40 times. So I love this musical. But the Wells Fargo wagon, you could substitute the Wells Fargo wagon for the Amazon delivery driver, and it would be the same thing.
That is 100% true. That's the part that I was surprised by. Like, everyone looks forward to the wagon and it bringing them stuff, and I'm like, in my mind, it's a bank. I was struggling with
Yeah,
understanding that.
yeah,
But, times change.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even oh shoot, I might be messing this up. One of your listeners probably yelling at me through the speaker right now with what I'm about to say, but I think it was it End of Back to the Future 2 that Wells Fargo delivered the Western Union telegram?
Oh, shoot. I do not remember, and I've talked about that on the show and seen that movie like 1,000 times.
Well, there we go.
But someone will know.
It's okay. They're yelling at us right now as we're having this conversation. It's fine.
Yeah, how
It's fine.
dare we not know that? Um, I wanted to add that the vibe, I was talking about the year, it reminds me a little bit of Meet Me in St. Louis.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
No.
well, I actually only saw it because Kelly, Kelly picked it for one of our episodes on the show. She really likes it, and it takes place at the turn of the century during a World's Fair.
Okay.
And
I'll
I
have to
don't know,
check it
it's
out.
just I guess it's just very like American. I don't know how else to say it, but like, um, this is what's good about smaller towns in the Midwest or whatever. And I think they go to like a big fair, and I shouldn't say I think they do, but yeah, I think you should check it out.
I will definitely have to check that out. Yeah. Um, whenever I was like looking at and like the year and everything, um, the the job that I wanted to do when I was a kid, like this is what I want to be when I grow up. I wanted to be an oceanographer, and that had to do largely with the movie Titanic that came out in
Oh,
1997.
I
And
could
you got
see that the way that they filmed the ocean in that movie.
yes, and you got to think like with this one, with the Music Man taking place in the summer of 1912. I mean, this had only been like 4 months, right, since the
Hmm.
Titanic had sunk. So like this would have been like
Wow.
still really popular news back then.
That's an interesting thing to think about.
Right, right. So you see, so I know I'm jumping around, but whenever Harold Hill, excuse me, whenever Harold Hill rolls up into town and everyone is singing Iowa Stubborn to him, he plants his suitcase, he sits down, he watches people um, coming out of a building, and in the archway, portico, whatever it's called, you can see a portrait of President Taft. So Taft is still president
Oh,
at this
wow.
point.
I missed that. That's interesting.
So this would have been just before the election of 1912, when Woodrow Wilson would have been elected to be the next president.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so in 1912, I believe it was Taft, Wilson, and Roosevelt, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm,
And Wilson Wilson won decidedly. So yeah,
wow.
so that's kind of like where we're at in the time frame of this. And as we're going by, like I'm looking at these like the flags that are kind of like on the like the just the different like street corners and stuff like that. Like, are there the right amount of stars on those flags for 1912? So
That's something I would not notice, but that's very cool.
yeah, like so just a bunch of like real like the detail that they were putting into this, like I just really appreciated.
Yeah.
And so um but like moving through this, there is like one other like song and a half, I think, that I just really like, and I was actually singing it with my wife before having this conversation with you, and that was "Till There Was You."
Mm.
I love that song. It is just so beautiful, and you hear, especially whenever they're going doing the back and forth outside of Marion's house in this movie, singing 70s like excerpts of 76 Trombones and "Till There Was You," or "Goodnight My Someone." They're kind of like sifting through all that stuff, and then they start to switch. And mind you, like we're in like the back third by that point, but it's such a powerful moment, I think, that's taken place whenever Robert Preston's Harold Hill and Shirley Jones's Marion are singing each other's songs, and just the switch and the change in depth of characters. Um,
Mm.
it just gets me. It just gets me every time, and it's just written so well. It's scored so well too.
Yeah. I guess that's why it became such a popular song. That's why Paul McCartney liked it.
There we go. There we go. Um, I don't know. The all the songs are good in their own right, all of them. And I don't know. I could gush about every single one of them, but I don't know if I should do that here, here on your show.
Well, gush about what you want for sure.
I mean, I'll hold back. I'll hold back. We'll leave it alone for right
Okay.
now.
I guess an aspect I want to inject that I like, I'm always going to mention this in probably every movie like this, but loved all the costumes.
Yeah. What was your
I
What was
oh,
your
go ahead.
favorite costume?
My favorite costume. I guess I hadn't selected a favorite, but I like when I guess I like her like librarian outfits the most for some
Okay.
reason. I don't know, I think she just looks really cute. And then also I guess that society of women you were talking about earlier, like the older ladies that plan stuff. I like their dresses. Like they're a little more like well-to-do, dressed up kind of outfits. They're a bit gaudy, but I think that they are cool to look at and would be fun to make.
Okay, you talking about the Pick a Little Talk a Little bunch?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Which that for anyone that hasn't seen this, the, this these well-to-do, older, gossipy
Gossip
women.
is a good term for them. Yeah.
There we go. So they like the mayor's wife has her hands in like everything, pretty much.
Hmm.
Uh, like she's
It's
pulling
a
the
small
strings.
town, they keep themselves busy best they can, I guess.
Very much so. Very much so. And there's a part in this where the I gotta talk about this in a second too, where the the group of men and the group of ladies, they all kind of come together, and just before that you see like a bunch of chickens running around, pecking at the ground, like trying to eat some stuff, and then you get like this top down shot of the ladies like bobbing their head, and it's like it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's a perfect parallel between like the chickens trying to eat food and the ladies just being a bunch of hens. It's great.
But what's funny about it to me is the perspective that I have now is so different from when I was like a kid. Like when I was a kid, if I saw this movie, I would have been like, "God, they're so annoying." But now as an adult, I'm like, they're fun parts to play though, because they get to be so big and over the top. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's a fun role to be one of these little busybody ladies, especially the
Yes.
main one because she's the mayor's wife because she's just so impossible. Like, isn't she the one that is so mean to the librarian about a book that she let her daughter read or suggested to
Yes.
her daughter? It's like she really
Yes.
doesn't want her daughter to like read anything interesting. And of course, being a librarian, she's kind of like, "Are you serious, lady?" She's just someone that she's always having like a big shocking, I'm horrified, I'm offended moment, and you know, a lot of it has to do with her feelings towards her because of her having all the books like they're talking about in the song.
Yes, yes. And speaking of the dirty books, that Mrs. Shin is so dead set against, having Madam Librarian encourage the young people of River City with. I looked this up. So she identifies several of these different authors in their little Pick a Little Talk a Little song. Chaucer, Rabelais, Balzac, and
Yeah, they have a really hard time with that particular author. I'm not familiar with their work, but I'm assuming they're like love poems or something.
so here's the thing with Chaucer. So Canterbury Tales. So
Oh, actually, I took a class on Canterbury Tales in
okay,
college.
so you probably know way more about Chaucer than I do, but um, th-
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, sure.
sure. Well, I've never read him, so
Okay.
you're more read than I am when it comes to him. But his book apparently was being one of the most banned and controversial books in general, just because of how much it criticized the church and
Mm.
themes of sexuality in the
Oh
book.
yeah, it's wild. I mean, and it's made up of stories that weren't necessarily written by Chaucer. They're just stories that were popular at that time that are collected into a book, but there's a lot of stuff in it. I mean, how much time do you have? But yeah, it's violent and sexual and pretty controversial by today's standards. Like there's a lot of, I mean, and plus it's really hard to read because it's like in old English, and the teacher that we had like would only speak that way and talk that way, during the class. So
Huh.
it was tough to get through when you're like shocked. You're like, "Oh, I didn't know I'm this ignorant. I had no idea." But yeah, I could see why um if you're in a small town that doesn't know a lot about it, they probably would be like, "Oh my God, no, you guys can't read this."
Well, in Rabelais, which was one of the other authors that they mentioned in the song too, was very much like Chaucer, in the
Mm.
sense that it was satirical and criticized the church. So
Gotcha.
again,
Okay, yeah,
like,
that's a red flag for a small town like that. They're like, no.
and then the other one with Balzac, since that was another more popular one, um, there were a lot of sexual themes that were considered highly inappropriate with the writing that he did. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
and not only that, but he apparently wrote very realistic and with like no filter.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, for a small town, those three, yeah, probably not so much.
Oh, you know what? I said Old English and I meant Middle English. I felt really bad when I said that out loud. I was like, that's wrong. So anyway,
There
it's
you go.
written
Strike
Middle
that,
English.
replace it. There we
Yeah,
go.
sorry y'all. I only took one class. I'm definitely not an expert.
I am no expert at all. So there we go. We're in good company, I suppose. um, there was so look. I'm not a prude or anything. I mean, maybe people would argue that I am. I don't know, but there's like one song that just I don't know. Like I have a hard time with,
Okay.
like with the time that this is in, uh,
Oh,
and that is the sadder but wiser girl for me, and it's Harold Hill and Marcellus. They're in the stable. They're talking about, um,
oh, like what women are like fast
yeah,
women. And, like, yeah, that was kind of weird. I'm like, I feel like people wouldn't have said that back then. Trying
right,
to appeal to the 60s, I guess.
exactly. That was my point that I was going to get at is that this is 1912, not 1962, and talking about like this. I don't want no wholesome, down to earth woman, no sir. I want the sadder but wiser girl for me, and um,
Yeah, I don't like the sadder part. It's just not okay.
essentially talking about like this, like wanting like an easy woman,
That's
essentially.
vulnerable also,
Right. Like,
because she's sad.
I mean,
Yeah, it's not good.
I was obviously I wasn't alive at the turn of the century, but I mean, society was a little bit different. I mean, there's still going to be like a lot of like similarities, just from like one generation to the next, but just the way that I think social cues and expectations would be. Like, I just don't see that
Yeah.
playing out like that
I
at the
feel
turn of the
like that was
century.
like a nod to the audience because they have Buddy Hackett,
Sure.
you know. But I agree with you, and I also don't like it. So we're on the same page there.
I mean, it's a toe tapper, but like just the lyrics are just eh.
It doesn't age great.
No,
And it's
no,
like, you're right, it doesn't really fit the tone of the movie because none of the men seem to act like that, and neither do the women. So you're kind of like, this came out of left field.
yeah. I mean, it's I guess it's like one of those things, and where it's like that guy talk, like that behind
Yeah,
closed
yeah.
doors, which is quite literally what it was actually.
Yeah, I think that's
Minus
what they were
minus
kind of
Amaryllis
getting
being
at,
there.
is like this would be a private conversation. Yeah. But still, it's like, ew.
Can we just not type of thing?
Can we
What?
skip that part? Yeah. But anytime you see an older film in any era, you kind of have to put it in its era, and like even though it takes place in 1912, it was made in the 60s.
Yes, yes, it was.
So it's going to reflect like the humor of the time and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Well, which when Amaryllis comes up to the stable door and she's like, "Can I see the horses?" Lady, we're closed. Like we're closed. I mean, come on now. No. All right, fine. Come on in. Um, by the way, with Amaryllis, um, I don't know. I know she's like supposed to be somewhat of an insufferable character, but like prodding good old young Winthrop with his lisp, just
Oh yeah.
at the very beginning, like you want him to come to a party, you have like some kind of feelings for him or whatever, but come on now, really? Like
I
you're
think that's another like of its time sort of thing, because now we're like horrified by that. But
sure,
back then it's probably like, yeah, take a joke,
right. So with her, I was looking this up, and I had to like kind of really pay attention on one of my more recent viewings of this. But whenever she's actually playing "Goodnight, My Someone," um, so on screen, like you can see, like based on like the keys, that she's playing three particular notes: C, G, and E.
Mhm.
But later on, but like when you actually hear it, it's not C, G, and E that you're hearing.
Interesting. Maybe that was just what they could get her to do. I don't know.
I mean, they're like all right next to each other, but like what she's actually playing, that like the actual notes that are being played are B, F sharp, and D sharp.
Mm.
So like they're all like right there essentially. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
too far off, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. And then Marion, who sings "Goodnight, My Someone," um, is singing it in essentially a different key from what's being played.
I guess they're like, oh, the audiences won't notice this. It's like
No,
unless you play the piano.
yeah, like you play piano, do any kind of like music theory studying, stuff like that.
I guess we can call it movie magic.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Um, did you know? Did you know that the big reveal at the very end
hmm
is actually the USC Marching Band?
I did not. That's really cool. I mean, it
Yep.
makes sense. They're like, let's get some people that can play since we've established these poor children cannot play.
hmm And all the instruments that were used, in particular for that one scene, were not used like, well, they were never marked like Warner Brothers or Music Man or anything like that. They were made specifically for the film, and
Wow.
then they were just kind of just released like with no pomp and circumstance. So there's like no like official marking essentially to denote what it was, but they were just kind of like re-released out into the public essentially. So someone
Wow.
out there could have a like a cornet, a piccolo, a snare, or something from the
And not
Music
even
Man
know
and not
it.
even know it.
Wow. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's maybe before they were really making sure, things in movies were treated like artifacts.
Right, right. Again,
Wow.
different time. Things weren't
Yeah.
as
They're like,
crazy
okay,
as
let's
they
make
are.
the next movie. Now it's like, oh, we could have made some money with that one.
Right. I mean, like it's not instruments, but like even like with like Doctor Who, for example, like the BBC didn't know that Doctor Who was going to take off as well as it did, and they were like recording over episodes
Ugh.
to save to
You
save
hear that
reel
story
and
a lot
costs and stuff.
with TV. That happened a lot.
Yeah, it's just wild to me. But yeah, different time, and personally, I would love to get like a trombone or something from the Music Man. I mean, that'd be stupid cool if I could like track one down.
I know. I wonder if somebody's working on that. There's got to be some way to kind of figure out a ballpark. This is probably one of the instruments or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If someone could track down, all right, listeners, people in listener land, look,
Get Chase this trombone.
I need this trombone, y'all. Okay, so help a brother out. So 1-800, I don't know, make something up. But anyways, we need to track these instruments down.
We need them.
So let's come together. Let's like form a compound or something, like a pact or whatever, and let's get some Music Man instruments and let's start our own River City Band.
Sounds good.
Why not? Why not? I'm going off. I'm rambling now. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's what we do on this show.
Oh lordy. This is like more of a connection than anything else. Um, but one thing I mentioned, like playing trombone. I mentioned even like the high school thing and stuff like that, and hearing 76 trombones. One thing I didn't know about until just, oh gosh, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe, was the fact that this was my mom's favorite musical.
Oh,
And um, we would talk about it without even knowing that we were talking about it, and we didn't know how much we both loved this musical. And my mom and I would talk about like the most random stuff, and we would like incorporate quotes and like song lyrics and stuff, like just have like entire conversations just like using only titles of songs and movies. Like that's just kind of like what
Oh,
we did. And we just got on a roll one day just talking about the Music Man. And um, yeah, like she had moved away like whenever I was in high school, so she'd moved away and never really talked to her about it then. And it wasn't until I was like out of college and kind of doing my own thing after moving back to Texas that we kind of like found out about the Music Man together, and it was just such a beautiful thing. And
yeah.
I mean, Lisa, like my mom, she passed away from her battle with cancer, but like that's just one sweet memory that I have with her is that we got to share this musical together essentially before she died.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys were able to share that.
Yeah. So there we go. That's my wet blanket moment. Sorry for bringing the vibe down.
No, I mean it doesn't. It's like that's what's special to me at least about film is like not only do you love the movie, but you end up loving the memories that you create around watching it and enjoying it with other people.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And there was one time where we did watch it together, and um, you did not want to be in the room with my mom and I when it actually happened,
Singing every song.
and quoting every line. Yeah,
That's
pretty much.
great. That's the mark of a good movie though, is when you're quoting along. It's
Right.
it's fun. I've been to a couple like it's not every line in the movie because, a whole theater of people doing that would be a little bit much, but it's sort of like a Rocky Horror-ish thing where,
Mm-hmm.
Alamo Drafthouse sometimes did showings where they would do quote-alongs, like for Pulp Fiction and stuff like that, and those were really fun to go to because you're just like, when everyone says the quote together, it's on the screen, they put the subtitles up on the screen, there's just something really great to that energy.
Yeah. Unrelated to the Music Man, but that's kind of how it was like with Austin Powers. Like you did not want to be in the same room with me back in high school. Um, I was insufferable when it came to that. So
Also in the 60s.
yes,
This
I have a
movie's not in
thing
the
for the
60s,
'60s
but it's
apparently.
set in the 60s, yeah.
Yes,
It's probably your parents.
probably. Why not? Yeah, let's
It
let's.
is for me anyway.
Oh lordy, oh lordy. Well, one other thing that I found kind of cool about what they incorporated into this is a set of characters, and it was I briefly alluded to it with the Pig Little Talk Little ladies, but
Mhm.
the Barbershop Quartet was the group the Buffalo Bills, which was um, by all accounts a wildly successful um, a cappella group, a wildly successful
Oh, interesting.
quartet from the 1960s. In fact, they I believe it was like 1960 or 1961. They were the winners of this national competition for a cappella.
Oh,
Um,
wow. So they were
so
kind of formed that way.
so they were essentially formed that, or not. They were essentially cast for that
Oh, okay.
reason as
Mhm.
this group, right? As these singing men that hate each other apparently in the Music Man, which I
Yeah.
think is great. Like song like does like wonderful, powerful things to our emotions and our experience, and it can bring people together. It can really convey emotion in a way that words can't, even
Yeah.
though they're singing it. And yet, these men that have like hated each other for over a decade are now just instantaneously best friends, singing about ice cream and light a rose and all this other stuff in this film, and have wonderful harmonies. By the way, wonderful harmonies.
Yeah, I agree.
The whole thing. I mean, the whole thing is about this confidence man, this con man, right?
Yeah.
Who's trying to. get the best out of these people. And like the plan is to not just sell instruments, but oh, by the way, we're going to add some shiny new band uniforms too. And as soon as you get that and I get my cash, boom, I'm out of here, y'all. And
Yeah.
he falls in love with the librarian and
Mm-hmm.
gets his foot stuck in the door, like he says. And um, what a wonderful thing to be, transformed by um, by this whole experience. Like who's the real Khan in this? Who's the one that's really doing this long game? Essentially, is it Harold Hill or is it Marion Peru?
Yeah, because
That's
she
what I want
later
to know.
admits she's like, I always knew, but she's like, because she's like kind of the more street smart person, I think, in that town. She sees right through him right away.
Yeah, like she knew within 3 days that
Mm.
he was a con. That there was no Gary
Should have
Conservatory.
should have checked his credentials. I mean,
I want to see their doggone credentials.
I like that part where he's like, "Let me go get them. They're in my apartment," and then he just like leaves. It's like,
Right, or
well,
he pulls out like his little his tuning um oh shoot like his pitch pipe, right? He
oh
pulls
yeah,
out
yeah.
his pitch pipe and just boom, automatically like, yeah, let's just distract you with song. I'm gonna slip away.
I also
Uh,
liked when he was teaching instruments and he was basically just like, "You'll figure it out." And when Ron Howard is trying challenging him on that, he just tries to make him feel kind of dumb. It's kind of like, "Well, this is what you're going to have to do. I can't coddle you. You're going to have to figure it out." It's like he's very smooth with evading questions about how to play the instrument.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Use it's what I call the think system.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone. What he said, like my teacher once told me, Professor Hill, like his teacher called him Professor Hill.
Yeah.
Are you serious? I don't know if
Little
you
slip
caught that.
there. I didn't, but that's funny.
Um, like, don't let anyone touch your instrument. That is your instrument. And when you're ready, you'll pick it up and you'll know, type of thing.
How nice that
Really?
would be.
I would love that. Look, if I didn't have to look, man, if I didn't have to worry about like scales and like embouchure, like, oh my gosh, like, can we talk about embouchure? Like, just like learning how to place my tongue and stuff on the mouthpiece for my trombone. I mean, it's not that hard when you're learning how to like do tonguing, but goodness, like just how to like have breath control and everything. Like that's like just learning right there. Like
Yeah, that's
forget,
not even the playing it part.
right. Like don't even get me started on like position 1 through 7, what the notes are for the trombone. Or even how to properly hold your trombone to empty your spit valve, for crying out loud. Um, which I did think it was kind of funny, like with whenever Professor Hill is buttering up to Mrs. Peru about Winthrop and um, how he has like the perfect um, formation for his embouchure. Like all embouchure is how you place your mouth essentially for your instrument. Like whether you're doing a brass or a woodwind. So like whether you're playing a clarinet, like how you position your lips and your tongue to get the air to go into the reed to play the notes for a clarinet, or it's again for like a trumpet, a cornet, a trombone, a tuba, bar, baritone, whatever it is. Um, that's all it is. That's all it is, and people don't know that. People don't
Yeah,
know that in this town, except for Marion, for crying out loud.
she's the only one.
She's the only one. Which here's the thing that I wasn't. I guess I wasn't thinking too much about, but okay, so she teaches piano. She's the musically inclined one. There's a freaking high school in River City, Iowa. Is she the music teacher at the high school, or is like the music teacher like on vacation or something? Like, where's the music teacher that's at the high school? That's what I want to know.
That's a good point. Yeah, either they're missing one or she wears a lot of different hats. I don't know.
Right? Right? Anyway, um, but yeah, where are these people? Where are these people? Um, I don't know if you've ever been to Gary, Indiana, by the
I
way.
have not.
I have been through Gary, Indiana, and it's my understanding that that is actually where Michael Jackson and the Jackson family are from, where
Oh.
they lived. And Gary, Indiana, at least what it looked like, no offense if anyone's from Gary, Indiana or listening from Gary, Indiana. Indiana is a beautiful state. I've been through Gary, Indiana on my way to and from Michigan to Chicago. Gary, Indiana is not the safest place to live, or at least it wasn't about a decade ago. Um,
Hmm.
it's a very
But this takes
industrial,
place in
blue collar
Iowa,
town.
right?
Do what now?
I think this takes place. I thought it was in Iowa.
It does, yeah, like River City, Iowa is where they're at. But
Oh,
Harold
okay.
Hill said that he was part of the Gary Conservatory,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
gold medal
Okay.
class of '05, and then he says like Gary, Indiana is my home sweet home. And anyway, like I don't know what it was like at the turn of the century, but it's very like at least like early 2000s whenever I was living in the Midwest. Gary, Indiana is very much a blue collar town, and
Mm.
people go through Gary, Indiana for the most part. They don't tend to stay there. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. Just like again, I mean, you gotta like appreciate it for what it is, like in the time that it's taking place, but just like knowing what that part of Indiana is like, in that it's very blue collar. It's not going to be much of a conservatory kind of place.
Yeah,
At
he's
that
probably
point,
hoping they just won't go there, 'cause or something.
right now, there very well could be or could have been a Gary Conservatory for all I know, but
Not a
that
famous one, probably.
no, and no, there is not.
Oh, okay.
There is not,
Confirmed.
by the
Can confirm.
way. Just a little on the fly research. There is no Gary Conservatory of Music except in this Broadway play. So there we go. Um, one thing that is pretty cool about this, I'm sure you've seen other musicals like Grease, perhaps, or
Oh, yeah.
Footloose, maybe even something like Guys and Dolls, Once Upon a Mattress, stuff like that. Those are all very popular musicals that'll take place, certainly like in community theater, right? Whether it's like a amateur or professional kind of troupe, or even in high schools, like you might see some of those being produced. The Music Man is I believe it is one of, if not the most um, produced production in all of stage,
Oh,
from like high school type stuff to public theater. It is just it's a wildly popular one that's constantly being reproduced, constantly being
interesting.
adapted over and over again. So this is a production that I think stands the test of time, and
Yeah,
that
sounds
has a
like it.
lot of reach with audiences.
Yeah, sounds like it, very much so. I mean, like I said, more than one person has wanted to talk about it, and, it seems like people kinda lit up in the group when I mentioned I was watching it, so.
Again, if you made it this far in the episode, I hope I haven't let you down yet.
I'm sure it's been awesome.
Let's hope. We can only hope. We can only hope. Um, so the music. I don't know if you if you had looked into any of the awards that the Music Man had earned at
Oh,
all.
okay. No, but go ahead.
Um, so there was one awarded at the 35th Academy Awards, and nominated for five others. So
Interesting.
it won Best Musical Score at the 35th
Okay.
Academy Awards. Um, so it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, and also Best Sound Recording. With the Golden Globes, they again it was nominated for quite a few. It won Best Motion Picture for a musical.
Oh, nice.
Best It was nominated for Best Director, Best Actor and Actress, so Robert Preston and Shirley Jones respectively, and Best Original Score. And finally, with the Writers Guild of America, um, it won Best Written Musical. So now we're talking like the film adaptation. So these are all the film adaptation ones, not the ones that you would typically like receive a Tony for, right? So
Oh, gotcha.
Tony with like the stage, but these are all specific with the 1962 film adaptation of The Music Man.
Got it. Okay.
So,
Very
I mean,
cool.
it did pretty well, and
Yeah.
not only that, but in 2005, so the year I graduated high school, by the way, the film was selected for preservation with the National Film Registry
Oh,
by
very
the
cool.
Legislature of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So, yeah, buddy.
Great.
So I'm very pleased with the fact that it's done as well as it has, and the fact that
Yeah.
people are still responding to this
Yeah,
film
still talking about it. Still
60
watching it.
years later.
Yes.
60 years later. Come on now.
I think that proves, like you said, that it stands the test of time.
Yeah. And I don't know. With Robert Preston, I mean, I believe he passed away in 19 I think it was like 80 something from lung cancer.
Mm.
And Shirley Jones is still alive. She's
Oh,
alive
wow.
and well. She's in her, I think, late 70s, early 80s. I think she was. Here's the thing that's crazy to me. She was 28 years old in this movie. 28 years old playing Marion Peru. And the thing that's always, um, I don't know, like messed with my head a little bit, and like, look, it's not impossible, but it's just kind of weird, is that Winthrop is supposed to be 8. And
Okay.
Marion is supposed to be a full-on adult, and you look at Mrs. Peru, and I have no idea how old she's supposed to be, but wow, you have potentially a 28-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son. Like, what's going on here?
Movie pretend ages.
Right, we're making this up. Just pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Essentially, it's fine.
It's like when you watch a movie and like the parents are like 9 years older or something, and you're
Hmm.
like, wait a minute here.
Right. um, anyway, anyway, um, yeah. I mean, this is just I mean, I do feel like I've kind of gone all over the place with it,
No, you're
but
fine.
this is just such a heartwarming movie. And early on, even in my marriage, my wife knew how much I loved The Music Man, and I had never, for whatever reason, I had never been able to track down a copy
Huh.
of like a VHS or a DVD or anything like that of it. And I think it was for Christmas one year. She she had purchased it for me. I opened it up and my eyes just like lit up. I was just
Oh,
over the moon.
that's
Um,
great.
just seeing like, oh my gosh, I have a DVD copy of The Music Man, and she had never seen The Music Man. So
Oh, okay. So you're like, we can finally watch it together.
absolutely, let's watch it together right now. So like, we threw
Very
away
cool.
all the gift wrapping and everything, and threw it in the DVD player, and boom, we're off to the races. And this is like yeah, he's a con man, but I think the thing about good storytelling is that you have um, some kind of transformative experience of the
Mhm.
human condition that takes place, and you see that really with all the characters, but especially like your core, like 3 or 4. In this case, I would consider that to be Professor Harold Hill, Marion Peru, Winthrop, and maybe Marcellus, played by Buddy Hackett. Maybe. I mean, he's already kind of reformed, but
Yeah.
like with Winthrop, with his lisp and his confidence, you see that through the course of this movie that it begins to not really even matter to him anymore. Like he doesn't think about
Yeah.
it. Like people aren't as focused on it as you think they are, type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And then you go from this smooth talking, get in, get out, get on with your life type of con man, Harold Hill, and like he's actually like sorry in a way for what he's done, because he's like, shoot, I actually care about these people. I actually care about this woman now. Like this is different than the other towns that I've ever been in. And Marion, who's just so like wound up essentially, and strictly by the book, how she's kind of even like loosened up and kind of um, I don't know, eased up a little bit with like her demeanor and how she handles things while still maintaining who she is, like not losing who she is as a result.
Hmm.
And I just think it works. Like this movie just this movie, this musical, this story just works in talking about the human condition, about love, about improvement, about dreaming to a certain extent, about success, about coming to terms with your past. It just does it so well, and it does it with a fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah, I feel like you've kind of, I was going to ask you a couple of questions, but I feel like you kind of wrapped it up there
I do what I
with what I
can.
was going to say. I was going to ask you, like, why do you love it so much? And I think you said it pretty well.
Yeah, and not only that, but um, like the memories of being
Yeah.
able to share with my late mother, and the fact that I'm a trombone player. I don't play as much as I used to, or at all really, but yeah, like just everything. If you haven't watched this movie, um, I don't even know where it is. Like I'm assuming like Vudu or
Yeah,
like
I rented
other
it on
places.
iTunes,
Okay,
so I found it pretty easily.
there you go. I'm sure it's on like most like streaming platforms, like renting
Yes, yeah.
and stuff like that for probably a very affordable rate. If not, like you can go to like I don't know, probably like Half Price Books or a movie trading company or shoot, even like a certain Wells Fargo wagon here in the 21st century probably has it for you too at an affordable price.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And that's actually a pretty good pitch too. How would you pitch the movie to someone that hasn't seen it before?
How would I pitch it? Um, Man, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I still don't know. um, I would say if you want to, if you enjoy a good musical, some fast paced, smooth talking characters with a little bit of down home charm, this is the movie. This is the musical for you. In fact, if you just
Oh,
like musicals, this is the musical for you.
I agree. I think, it's a classic musical. It's one that a lot of people return to for a reason. So it's definitely one that should be in your collection of musicals that you like. And yeah, you can rent it pretty easily on iTunes. So
Yeah,
recommend checking it out.
yeah. And with this being, one of the more repeated, repeatedly produced musicals out there, I think it would behoove you to check this out
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. Like, why is it that this is being produced as much as it has? Well, check it out. I mean, Robert Preston is part of that success formula, as far as I'm concerned, and Shirley Jones. Shirley Jones has the most lovely voice ever, and in fact, the person who played Marion in my high school production, her name's Irene, and I still stay in contact with her. And her voice was like almost like exact with Shirley Jones's. Like her
Wow.
range was just impeccable, even in high school. So, I mean, Irene, like she knocked it out of the park whenever she portrayed Marion in our high school production. So, anyway,
Very
fantastic. Please
cool.
go watch this.
Yes. Well, Chase, thank you so much, for taking the time out of your day to come on this podcast and talk about this movie and share your experiences with the film that are personal and I also feel like I learned a lot about it. So thank you so much for coming on and hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely, it was an absolute joy to be able to come back and have a conversation with you. So, thank you so much for inviting me.